to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Phillip Bertoch, Certified Athletic Administrator and the Director of Human Resources and Athletics in the Duchesne District. Welcome to the podcast, Phillip.
Thank you, Hutch.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our listeners here in Utah and across the country where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Okay. Well, like a lot of rural school educators, I grew up in the same community that I ended up teaching in. So I went through all of my education here in Duchesne County School District in Roosevelt. Graduated from Union High School back in 1987. Then right after high school, I went down to play a little college football at CEU for a little bit. Ended up with an injury that caused me to sit out and rethink where I was going. Went to school for a year and ended up serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Seattle, Washington mission. Following my mission, I came back and got married, went to school at Utah Valley, and then came out here to Roosevelt and finished up through Utah State University here in our local branch campuses here, and started teaching at Union High School in the fall of 1996. I taught a lot of science classes. I had a biology major in college, biology composite in secondary ed. So I taught biology and then ended up teaching chemistry. And I taught here for about 3.5 years and then went to the Kingdom of Tonga. And I taught school at Liahona High School for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints down there for 1.5 years. And came back in the fall of 2001 and stayed there for several years, taught for about 13 years.
That is incredible. I have so many follow-up questions. I need to write myself a note here. So how was it being in Tonga for 1.5 years?
You know, that was a wonderful experience. A lot of people spend an enormous amount of money to be able to go and experience the South Pacific. And when we were able to go, we were young, just barely turned 30 years old. We had 3 kids. It was a great experience. The Tongan people are wonderful people. They just welcome you with open arms and love you and help you. And even though, we did some dumb Palangi things that they would say, they just laugh at us and laugh with us. Great experience.
And I assume, even though you're at the district, you know quite a few of the athletes at Union High School.
Yeah, I do quite a few of them. Since I've been away for 3 years, I'm a little bit less familiar with them, but I still go to quite a few of their events.
My question is, because I know one kid out there that played football with my grandson at corner and then transferred out Union. Now, I apologize because I just call him J-Ras, but I'm sure he was the quarterback out there for the past couple of years at Union.
Yeah, Rasmussen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, his dad played back when I was an assistant coach here under Coach Don Busenbark. Phenomenal athlete, 3-sport athlete. And Rasmussen's come out here and join the Cougars. It's been fun to have him here.
That's incredible. Let me ask you I wouldn't say the Little League culture, but Union is not the biggest town, but obviously it's not a small town like Duchesne. Was there opportunities for Little League sports there? Did you have to travel when you were younger growing up?
So when I grew up, we didn't have we didn't have Little League football. We had Little League baseball and then junior jazz basketball, but that was about it. It wasn't until I really got into junior high that I started getting into sports. I started with wrestling and then moved to basketball for a few years, but football was where I really found my niche in high school. That was a great experience for me.
Excellent. Let's talk for a moment about the mentors in your life, the people that had a big influence on you, obviously your parents, but maybe some other ones too.
yeah, of course, my parents have some great impact on my life, and I have a lot of things that I say. I call them Merrillisms, those little sayings. That's my dad's name, Merrill. I always tell everybody you can say some of them in church, but a lot of them you can't be said in church. But they're little quotes and stuff that have impacted my life and helped me become who I hope I am today. Things that teach me about responsibility and being on time and doing good work. You know, my dad always told me that if you did 10% more than what's required, you're 20% ahead of most of the world. And I've tried to live by that through my life. It's been great advice. I also had some amazing coaches. In fact, I got a phone call from one just last year, just out of the blue, Wayne Kittrell. He's been a long-time coach down at Snow Canyon. He coached his early years up here at Union High School. And he just reached out to me. He saw my name at the district office. And phenomenal coach who just pushed me. He wouldn't settle for mediocrity. And he would make me work with him in the weight room. He just would push me. And just very grateful for his influence in my life. Great man who's committed his entire life to education-based athletics and education. I had some other great coaches, you know, Coach Kittrell and Coach John Valentine. He left here and went to Twilla for a while. I haven't lost track of him, but I remember the two of them bringing me in high school. My sophomore year, I was very impressionable and wearing a hat that advertised a particular type of adult beverage that, you know, I really shouldn't have been wearing. And they just brought me in and they said, you know, Phillip, is that who you want to be known as your whole life? Is that what you want to be known by? And I said, no, coach, that's not what I want. And they said, you know, we didn't think so. We thought a lot higher of you. But just great people who invested their lives in me. You know, Coach Paul Maggio went on to Cedar City, down to Iron County School District, just retired a few years ago there. Coach Lee Merritt, he ended up in Arizona. But great people who invested their life in me and helped me to want to try to give back as well.
That's fascinating. Let me ask you about the current makeup of Union this year and how it's going to change next year, because I've got a piece of information that you might find fascinating. So who's in your league this year?
So this year, our region is Manti, Juab, North St. Pete. Trying to think. I know in tennis we're playing Wasatch Academy. I think those are the main ones: Juab, Manti, Delta. How could I forget that? That's almost a 3-hour drive each way.
Okay. My question is, in the good weather, do you take 191 over the Bangor Monument towards Price and then cut back up down it, or do you go just straight down to Provo Canyon and then down the freeway?
Well, it depends on who's driving the bus. If you have a real experienced driver that doesn't mind driving 191 over Indian Canyon, they'll take that and then take the Emma Park Road when it's open. But in the wintertime, we always just head across Strawberry down 40 over to Provo and then down that way.
The reason I ask, and is it going to change, or is it pretty much the same next year?
No, so it changes next year. We pick up Morgan, we pick up Ogden and Ben Lomond. So we take that northern region. So we won't be spending much time going over Indian Canyon. It'll all be.
No, you go to Ben Lomond and Ogden, you'll go the back way and up through Colville and around that way.
Yeah. We travel a lot out here.
Well, the reason I ask, and this takes me back over 40 years ago. I started at Jordan in the fall of '79. You were just a young kid.
Yes, I was.
And my memory is this: in the league was Jordan, Tooele, Murray, Judge, Uinta, Carbon, and Union.
Oh, wow.
I just think for the 1 year. And then, of course, I think we kept Uinta for the next 2 or 3 years. But I just remember the Union trip seemed much, much faster, although it's probably only 40 miles quicker, but it just seems so much quicker than traveling that other 40 miles out to Uinta.
Yeah, that's about right. I would have been the 1 year that Union went 3A. They were 2A forever, and then they went up to 3A that year and then back to 2A and stayed there for a long time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Let me ask you a little personal question, Phillip. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
I thought a lot about that. So I was the head football coach here for 5 years, and I was a young coach. And I had some really good mentors and great assistant coaches that worked with me. Anyway, towards about the end of my 50th season, I took some pretty serious criticism that I took personally. And because I took it personally, I let my emotions and my anger get the best of me, and I walked away. And I really regret that. And the thing that I probably learned the most from that was the significance of what we call our 24 or our 48-hour rule. That we need to give time for us
Yes,
to think.
exactly.
And that's probably what I would tell young ADs and young coaches is, first of all, don't take it personally. I've learned, after 27 years of education, that when it comes to their children, all parents are going to advocate, and they're going to advocate heavily for them. And the truth is, I'd be disappointed if they didn't. And so, I just learned not to take those things personally, and to give myself some time to let my emotions settle before I made actions. But that would probably be one of my biggest regrets through my career as a coach and as a teacher.
And now, as a follow-up, let me go to another part. You talked about coaching football. So let me ask you, before you became the athletic director, and you became the AD, what, in 14 or 15?
Yeah.
And so before that, you were just teaching, coaching. Were you always an administrator when you were coaching? Talk a little bit about what you did before you became the AD.
Perfect. So I spent 5 years prior to being an AD as an elementary administrator. 3 of those years, I was a vice principal at 2 different elementary schools, and I would spend half a day at each one. And then I was the principal of Kings Peak Elementary School for 2 years. Then there was an opening here at Union, and I talked to the super and said, I'd really like to come back to Union. I'd spent 13 years in the classroom. All but a year and a half of that was at Union High School. The year and a half that I was in Tonga, that was the only time I wasn't at Union High School. It was just my home. I just loved Union, and I wanted to come back to that. So when the opportunity arose, superintendent said, yeah, but I need you there as an educational leader. And then we had some other people who made some administrative changes, and I ended up being the athletic director, vice principal, and that was a great experience. He said, I want you to spend about 70% of your time as an educational leader and 30% of your time as an athletic director. And we all know that's not possible. It was 100% of your time as an educational leader and 100% of your time as an athletic director. Made for some very long days, but I think, we've all experienced that.
That's exactly right. Well, let's have you talk for a minute, Phillip, about the job of AD now, 2023, and how is it different from when you first started? And I'm going to throw this caveat out there. Let's not talk about COVID, because everybody goes back to COVID. It was a mess for everybody. So outside of the COVID mess, how has the job changed since you first became the director of athletics?
I think the biggest thing is that we as athletic directors, we've gotten involved with the UIAAA, which has been just a phenomenal organization for us to belong to. And the education that you've given us and helping us understand, school law, helping us understand sport law, help us understand all of the little nuances, the things that we need to do to check, to keep ourselves, to minimize our liability as much as possible. And that's probably the biggest thing that athletic directors face right now, is being able to minimize liability. We can't get rid of it. We can't get it gone completely, but we can make sure that we educate our coaches, that we're always holding our coaches training meetings, that we're looking at how to develop our coaches through professional development, so that we provide the safest experience we can for our student athletes, but our coaches as well.
Let me ask you about your journey with the UIAAA. And I guess I ask this because a lot of the times when you get a vice principal that's also over athletics, they just kind of put in their time or whatever. But you jumped in, you became obviously an active member. Talk about how you got into the UIAAA, and yeah, you did mention it earlier, but maybe a little bit more detail about what a difference it's made for you.
You bet. So I started out in Region 10. We had Jamie Sheets and Trevor Wilson, Kathan Beer.
Okay, there you go.
Shane Heath, some pretty big names.
Oh, and yeah.
I'll tell you what, these men just took me under their wing. They helped me. They mentored me. They tutored me. And, they said, Phil, you got to get in, you got to get your certification. They encouraged me to get signed up for the AD conference, St. George, and I did, and got signed up with some classes that fall. That my first year as an AD, that first year AD conference class you have, it's 501. And then just started taking the classes. I remember you particularly welcomed me at the conference that year. You made mention of, these new guys, but you said, especially new guys like this Phillip Bertoch. Just made me feel welcome. Great organization. And the training that I received there has just been paramount to being successful as an athletic director, as a school administrator, understanding the power of education-based athletics. Always been a firm believer because I, came through it as a student athlete and then as a coach. But just, the UIAAA just has really helped me out a whole lot, made some great connections. Got to know Big Rich Barton and was able to get him to come out last fall and meet with all of the principals and coaches and ADs across the district. And we were able to spend a lot of bit of time with the education-based athletics and that vision and mission and mindset. So my journey in the UIAAA, just a phenomenal, inclusive organization, great men and women who are interested not only in bettering themselves, but in bettering their colleagues and making the whole experience better for student athletes. Just a great organization to belong to.
Then let me ask you another follow-up. And you spoke about certification. So I want you to talk about your journey in certification. There's a lot of people out there that aren't certified. How long does it take? You mentioned some of the classes you took, and I want you to talk about the importance of being certified. And of course, part of the reason is selfish because you're aware of what we're trying to do with the legislature, trying to get an extra stipend for certified ADs, but I'll turn it over to you.
Well, and that was one of my big roles that our former superintendent wanted me to fulfill when I came to the district office. One of the main reasons he wanted me to stay with the organization of the UIAAA. So I've been working with our other schools. Union is our biggest school. We're just a little over 1,000 students. Our other schools are quite smaller, but I've been working with our other small schools to get their ADs certified because we want them to have the knowledge, the skills that will allow them to be able to build effective programs to help their coaches in their philosophy of an education-based athletic mindset. We want those ADs to be certified so that we minimize liability. The last thing we need to do is get ourselves caught up in litigation. That's always going to come to school districts, but let's do our very best to minimize that so that we can spend our resources where we really want them, which is with our kids, and we can provide them with facilities. And so my experience in coming through the classes, gaining the background and gaining the certification has just been paramount. Allows me to come back and have crucial conversations with our district administration, with our building administrators, with our coaches, so that we can help everyone to be successful and provide the best experience we can for kids.
That's great insight. Thanks for sharing. Let me make sure I have this correct now. So in the Duchesne district, 3 high schools or 4?
4 high schools, because Tabiona is our 4th one, our 1A school.
Because you got Tabby, you got Duchesne. I'm missing somebody.
Altamont.
There it is. And then of course.
Yeah.
And so your job actually, even though some of those schools are smaller than the Union where you came from, your job is over 4 high schools can be actually quite challenging at times because there's a little distance there. And of course, you've got 4 ADs in the schools to worry about.
Yeah. They're great men, and I've had great relationships with them. But yeah, we want to make sure that we keep each school, progressing, and we have great programs, and we hire good coaches that have the mindset and the philosophy that we have, that we want to push of education-based athletics.
Phillip, what's one common myth about being an athletic director that you want to debunk for the general public?
Well, I think a lot of people think that an AD just gets to go to games and enjoy them, and that there's not a whole lot of work that takes place before or after. But the big thing is, I would end the school day we have early outs on Friday, so all the kids have left the building at 1:06. But that's when my second job starts. And the same thing happens on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And you put in a lot of hours, but it's just such a rewarding profession, a great place to be. You're around great kids. You do get to go to games, and and every now and again you look up and you say, holy cow, I get paid to go to athletic games and athletic events.
Let me ask you this. I obviously retired the 1st of July, 2013, which is pretty much 10 years ago. And I think that next month is when Register My Athlete came on board. Talk about the difference now that everything is digital rather than paper. I like to tell the story that I had 2 filing cabinets right in back of my desk. Top 2 drawers for seniors, the next 2 for juniors, the next cabinet for sophomores and freshmen, and all that page just stacks. And of course you laugh because you're familiar with that, but talk about how, well, not just with Register My Athlete, but now with Arbiter and everything else, everything is digital, and we don't certainly have the stacks of paper we used to have.
Well, the digital world has made it so much easier. I remember when I was a head football coach and having to go through and list all eligibility. You have to list all the players, list their eligibility, and sign off on all that now. And that's just taken care of through Register My Athlete. It's pretty quick for me as an AD to go in and take a look, and I can see, just who all has filled out all their forms. Do we have our physicals put in and uploaded? All of that has just made it real easy. And then the Arbiter, I can go in and I can quickly, schedule all of our events. One of the things I really loved about Arbiter is as an AD, I'd go in on Monday and I'd flick through the games and I'd write down all the officials, and I had their email access, and I could send them an email right away, and I could welcome them to Union High School and let them know that we would have, hospitality for them, and that we would be there to meet them, and verify that they were coming and who the drivers were. It just made it so much more convenient to be able to not just only, schedule things, but to follow up and make sure that we had them coming and that they knew that I was aware they were coming. I could have good communication.
What's the favorite part of your job, Phillip?
My favorite part is that I'm in lots of schools. So I get to see a lot of kids. I get to be to a lot of different events. My first year in here, I traveled down to state to watch Duchesne High School play. I wouldn't have done that if I had just been at Union High School as the athletic director. So I could go to Union's games and celebrate them. I could go to Duchesne's games and celebrate them. I got to go out to Provo High and watch Tabiona play baseball in the fall. And fall baseball that's a dream sport. That's a great time for baseball. I love baseball. Springtime is a mighty cold time. So I guess I'd say my favorite part is that I get to associate with a lot of people, be in a lot of schools, and then my association with the UIAAA, being able to make networking and make connections with all of you great men and women in this organization.
Well, thank you. And I let me just, it's not a follow-up question, but when you speak about the UIAAA, we call it, obviously I call it in the board, we call it the UIAAA family, an extension of the NIAAA family. And we've worked hard at that, and we're glad and we're excited to see people like you and all the other ADs, because there is something different about it. I've said this for, I don't know how many podcasts I've done, hundreds, but when you go to a football coaches association conference, you have somebody stand up and they'll tell you about 20% of their secrets, and it's all general, and this is how we do stuff. And that 80% that they think makes them a winner, they're not going to share it. But you go to an AD conference, either in the state here or nationally, and boy, they'll just share everything. This is how you do it. This is what it is. So thank you for your kind words about the UIAAA. I wanted to throw this in. You'll just find this not really ironic, but my very first job interview. So this would have been June of 1979, fresh out of the University of Utah. Guess where it was?
I don't know.
Duchesne High School head football coach.
Really?
And of course, I didn't get the job, and I wonder how much different my life would be through high school and actually through my association with the UIAAA had I got that job. For all I know, I could still be out there. But I took the job at Jordan, and strangely enough, stayed there 34 years. So that's crazy. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Phillip. The first one being, you've got 2 suggestions for a brand new AD, and they need to follow your 2 suggestions in order to be successful. So I need Phillip's top 2 suggestions for a brand new AD.
Number 1 is network. Make sure that you reach out and you make network connections with your fellow ADs, especially those that are in your region, and use those resources that they have. Lean on them because they're good men and women who want to help you be successful. So that would be my number 1. My number 2, again, I'd say the one thing that I don't talk with parents about is playing time, and I just be upfront with parents about that. Say, I'm happy to listen to you, and I'll listen to all any of your concerns. But the one thing that's sacred to Phil is playing time, and that's something that players learn and earn. And the best thing that we can do as ADs is to support our coaches and to help our parents to support their kids through the process of becoming. And that's a key thing, that idea of process. And I just don't think we can overemphasize the value of the process. And let's value it. Let's value it as coaches. Let's value it as ADs. Let's value it as parents. Let's value it as athletes, and allow the process to mold us, to help us to become.
Well said. Let's finish with this question, Phillip. What questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Well, I don't know. I was surprised that you asked me to even do the podcast, to tell you the truth. I don't know that I have anything there, Hutch.
Well, on that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Phillip Bertoch, Certified Athletic Administrator, now Head of Human Resources and Athletic Director in the Duchesne District. Thanks so much, Phillip, for being here today.
Thank you, Hutch.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.